Hello everyone and welcome back to my precious channel. Today I'm sharing a deeply harrowing story about a famous natural disaster that happened in the land of the rising sun and changed many lives forever. This story comes straight out of deep and cavernous bowels of Ni-chan, a Japanese anonymous message board narrated and translated by yours truly, meaning it is just as likely that the author is pulling your leg as it is likely to be the real deal. That's up to you to decide. What is up to me, though, is to narrate it for you regardless, and to inform you that viewer discretion is very much advised. It is a story about our fellow Ni-chaner who apparently came face to face and had to square off not only with an earthquake but also had to fight the tsunami, armed with little else but his wits and his bare hands. Now then, let's begin. The first sign you see of a deadly tsunami, paradoxically, is not a wave. The ocean recedes, exposing the naked seabed. It is a nature's way of screaming to us land dwellers, run! On March 9, 2011, a colossal tsunami triggered by a 9.5 magnitude earthquake resulted in a catastrophe in my country, unmatched since the Second World War. This is the story of how I witnessed the sheer power of that tsunami firsthand. One in particular where I happened to live at a time when I was just a kid. I remember waking up to the soft sound of my mother's voice. It was a day like any other, grey clouds covering the sky like a blanket, and the promise of rain at some point during the day. It was shaping to be a rather boring day, even. "Haruto, it's time to get up. Breakfast is ready." Mother called me from the kitchen. I groaned, rubbing the sleep from my eyes and reluctantly pulling myself out of bed. The aroma of miso soup and grilled fish filled the air, a comforting smell that always started my day off right. I shuffled to the kitchen, where my mother greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, Haruto. Did you sleep well?" "Morning, Mom. Yes, I did," I replied, grabbing my chopsticks and digging into my breakfast. My younger sister Yumi sat across from me, still groggy but managing a sleepy smile. "Remember to look after Yumi today," Mom said as we finished our breakfast, "and stay safe." "Of course, Mom," I replied, giving her a reassuring nod. I glanced at the clock and hurriedly finished my meal. "I gotta go or I'll be late." Mom handed me my bento box, her eyes full of concern. "Be careful, Haruto." "Thanks, Mom, I will," I said, giving her a quick hug before grabbing my backpack and heading out the door. The walk to the now infamous elementary school was just like any other day. The air was pleasantly cool, and the sky was covered with grey clouds. I found the melancholic look of the dull sky to be peaceful and pretty in its own way, as if nature was in no rush to get anywhere. I decided to savor the moment as I walked to school. Once we arrived, Yumi and I went to our respective classes. I met up with my classmates, chatting about our weekend plans and the latest video games. "Hey Haruta, did you finish the math homework?" asked my classmate Kenta, the leader of the tennis club. "Yeah, but it was tough. I stayed up late trying to get it done," I replied. "Yeah, same here," he said, shaking his head. "I wish Mr. Tanaka would go easier on us." Soon the classes started: math, science, and then Japanese culture. Despite the normalcy, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease gnawing at me. Something felt off, but I shrugged it off, focusing on the lesson at hand. Just before lunch, the ground began to tremble. Where I live, earthquakes are commonplace. Usually it's a small thing, and we just ignore it. At first, it seemed like this was one of those non-incidents. It was just a slight shake, like a giant, gently rocking the earth. But then it intensified. Desks rattled, and the lights flickered. "Everyone under your desks, quick!" Mr. Tanaka, our teacher, shouted with a worried voice. We dived under our desks as instructed, as the earthquake grew more violent. The building creaked and groaned, and I could hear the terrified screams of my classmates. My heart pounded in my chest as I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that it would stop. After what felt like an eternity, it did. "Stay calm, everyone. Stay under your desks." Mr. Tanaka's voice tried to cut through the panic, but it was clear he was struggling to keep his own fear in check. When the shaking finally subsided, we crawled out from under our desks. The classroom was a mess. Books and supplies scattered everywhere. Mr. Tanaka quickly ushered us into the schoolyard, trying to maintain order despite the chaos. As we gathered in the schoolyard, the principal's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "Attention! Attention, students and staff! We have received a tsunami warning. Please remain calm and follow your teacher's instructions." Panic spread like wildfire. I felt a chill run down my spine as the reality of the situation sank in. A tsunami? Here? The teachers huddled together, debating the safest course of action. "We should head to the higher ground," one of them suggested. "No, it's safer to stay here and wait for further instructions," another countered. "We don't have time to debate," Mr. Tanaka said, his voice edged with urgency. "We need to make some sort of a decision right now." And the arguing continued. Something felt wrong. In fact, everything felt wrong. I looked around, my eyes landing on Aiko, my classmate and closest friend. "Aiko-chan," I whispered urgently, grabbing her arm. "What?" "We need to get to the mountains. We simply can't stay here." Her eyes widened with fear. "Huh?" she said, confused and frightened. "But the teachers said—" "I don't care what they said. We need to go." "Where?" Aiko asked. "To the nearby mountain." I pointed to the mountain just behind our school. "If the tsunami really is coming, and we stay here, we are as good as dead." "But how can we know?" "It was just an earthquake," Aiko argued. "I mean, sure, it was big, but it's not like we never experienced an earthquake before." "Yeah, I replied, but usually the teachers don't get this worked up about it, and I don't remember them issuing a tsunami warnings before. I don't know, Aiko said, puzzled. Aiko-chan, I whispered to her, please humor me just this once. Let's go up that mountain, it's close, and let's wait there. In case that tsunami really hits, the water wouldn't reach us. At the very least, we would stand much better chance than staying down here, basically at sea level. And if there is no tsunami within an hour or so, we'll just come back to school. If they still have any classes today, that is. But this isn't right, Aiko argued, although I could see that she herself wasn't sure about this. We never had this big of an earthquake before, I argued. Look, I continued to plead my case to Aiko. The school building is all messed up. Chances are they'll have to spend at least a day or two cleaning and putting back everything in the classrooms before any studying could be done. Worst case, we will receive absence from 1 or 2 classes, which I doubt, because our classroom looks as if a tornado passed through it. And if the tsunami really... Okay, fine. Aiko-chan finally agreed. Let's go. As Aiko-chan responded, another earthquake, this time just as strong, shook the ground, and everyone around us fell on the ground like bowling pins. Just as we started to move, another earthquake just as strong shook the ground again. Where is Yumi? I shouted. Who? Aiko shouted back amidst the commotion. My sister! We have to find her! I started dashing through the crowd of students who were tripping over one another while the earth was still shaking, desperately looking for my little sister. Finally, I saw what looked like Yumi's white hair bow. I made a mad dash towards her, but to my dismay, it was just a random student. Yumi! I shouted, trying to make my voice heard through the cacophony of noise. Someone grabbed my shoulder. I turned around frightened, and then immediately realized that it was Aiko. There! She pointed to the side where I saw my dear little sister standing across the street, clearly in distress. We quickly made our way to Yumi. By now, the other students finally realized that staying in this area was not a good idea. The crowd started dispersing in every direction. The teachers shouted angrily, ordering everyone to stay put, but it was no use. Some teachers themselves started panicking and running away, adding to the chaos. Me, Yumi, and Aiko grabbed hands and ran towards the nearby mountain behind our school. It was your typical Japanese mountain, or rather, a hill, green and surrounded by trees, not too steep, but high enough to tower over the small buildings in our town. As we ran past the school building, we heard the voice of one of our teachers behind us. It sounded angry, threatening even, desperate. I didn't understand what he or she was shouting though. Aiko, faster! I urged, pulling her along with my sister. We could hear the frantic calls of our teacher behind us, but we didn't look back. Another loud boom was heard, and the earth shook one more time, causing all of us to fall on our knees. After a few moments, the earthquake subsided again, and we continued to run toward the tree-covered mountain behind our school. We didn't turn back and didn't hear any more of our teacher's threats. As we reached a high enough vantage point on the mountain, I looked back, and we could see our school and the coastline. The ocean shore had receded much further than before. The roar of the tsunami grew louder. We then saw a monstrous wave crashing through the town, sweeping down everything in its path. The sheer force of the water was terrifying, reducing buildings to rubble in seconds, as if it were mere twigs. The wave was a churning mass of debris and destruction, swallowing everything. We clung to each other, watching in horror as our school building was engulfed. Tears streamed down our faces as we realized how close we had come to death. Aiko, Yumi-chan, we made it. I gasped, my voice choking with emotion. We survived. We all nodded, all three of us looking in stunned silence. What about everyone else? Eventually Aiko asked, staring at what used to be our school and neighboring town buildings, cars, electric poles. I don't know, I replied as we watched our small town to be reduced to mere rubble. As we sat there on the mountain for what seemed like hours, watching the devastation unfold below us, I could only hope that my sister Yumi, who was 7 years old, maybe didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. But I remember immediately dismissing the thought. She was a smart girl and saw perfectly well how the ocean destroyed our town and almost everyone in it. I can't believe this happened. Aiko whispered, her voice trembling. This can't be. This is nonsense. This kind of stuff happens only in stupid Hollywood movies. My sister was silent, with a stunned and solemn look like myself. What are we going to do now? Aiko asked. I don't know, but we can't stay here, I answered. And where would we go? Our town is gone. Our lives, families, everything. Aiko shouted desperately. We should go wherever the tsunami has not reached, I answered. Maybe on the other side of the mountain. I mumbled, eyes staring blankly towards the coast, face plastered with disbelief. But either way, we can't stay here forever. The water seems to be receding, so it should be fine. I said more to myself than the others and started stumbling further up the mountain, intending on hiking to the other side. As the sun began to set, we managed to cross to the other side of the mountain, where the water didn't reach as far inland. We saw some rescue teams arriving in the distance. Epilogue. In the days and weeks that followed, we took stock of what happened. My mother survived, since she was on a business trip on the other side of the country. The relief I felt upon seeing her was indescribable. My dad, however, disappeared in the waves, as he and his colleagues were on a fishing boat at the time. Many nearby coastal towns, including ours, were left in ruins, and the scars of that day would remain with us forever. We moved to Kakegawa, Shizuoka Prefecture shortly after that. My mother's relatives lived there, and they had a spare house with a sizable plot of land meant for gardening, which they rented to us. After the tsunami, my mother's character changed. She became sterner, her voice more strict. She became more demanding with school performance and things in general. Often I could see her standing in front of the window, gazing into the distance with an empty and melancholic look in her eyes. She was never the same after that. Neither were my sister and I. I have constant nightmares about it, even though 10 years have passed. My younger sister Yumi also carries this burden. That kind of pain no amount of counseling or pills is going to fix. It follows you forever, a constant reminder of a wasted life. Many students from our school did not survive. Many teachers did, however, for reasons unknown, and parents were angry, grilling the teachers about why they didn't prioritize the students' safety. The teachers offered little explanation. Aiko and I often visited the site where our school once stood, paying our respects to the friends and teachers we lost. The memories of that day haunted us, but they also made us stronger. I missed them, Aiko said softly during one visit, placing a flower at the memorial. We ended up marrying each other eventually. Me too, I replied, feeling the weight of our shared grief. But we're still here. We have to live for them. And so we did, carrying the memory of that tragic day with us. And that's the end of today's show and scary story. A bit more tragic than scary this time, but I think it still counts. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Please like, comment if you did, and please dislike if you didn't. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.